Hi, I'm Dorothy Gable, and this is a Biblical Dementia Caregiving channel. These videos are informational only to aid you in your dementia caregiving journey and are no substitute for medical treatment. The main three dementia stages are early, middle, and late. Each stage has its own characteristics, challenges, obstacles, hard decisions, and joys. This video will look at the early stages. Your loved one and the family are realizing something's wrong, but symptoms are still mild. The main characteristic of the early stage is a transition from independence to growing dependence. This is a stage for transition to more dependence on others, as well as making decisions and preparing for the coming stages. It's often tempting to think you'll have time later to deal with difficult issues. This is true for many other diseases, but not for dementia. Your loved one will eventually reach a time where they will not be able to express their wishes. Your top goals are to help your loved one push for diagnosis, complete their bucket list, prepare for the future, find caregiving partners and resources. Let's take a look at each one of these. Your first goal is to push for diagnosis. While there are no cures, having a diagnosis will help chart the course, as the different types of diseases that cause dementia have their own trajectory and issues. Alzheimer's typically begins with memory and orientation issues, fronto-temporal with behavior as well as communication issues, and Lewy body impacts the center of the brain, disrupting the brain's internal pathways that create problems with bodily systems, visual acuity, movement, and balance. That said, the commonality for all these diseases is that symptoms vary widely. We are created unique, individual, and because of these differences will express dementia differently. However, all will lose cognitive function over time. Our goal as caregivers is to slow the decline and enrich their lives as much as possible in accordance with their current state. Change over time. We need to be adaptive, flexible, creative, and unconditionally loving. This is a time to encourage your loved one to complete their bucket list. Dementia takes years to run its course, and many remain in the earlier stages for an extended period of time. They are very capable of continuing many tasks. As time goes on, they might need some assistance. Coming alongside to help your loved one stay engaged will slow the slide. There are two famous examples of people who continue to remain professionally active even after diagnosis: Glenn Campbell and Dr. Richard Taylor. Glenn Campbell, with the help of his team, family, and friends, created 2 new albums and completed a 151-event tour after his Alzheimer's diagnosis. Dr. Taylor, a psychology professor, continued to write and speak, publishing Alzheimer's from the Inside Out. This book explains what it feels like to have dementia. Preparing for the future is another important goal to pursue. Elicit the opinions of your loved one concerning where they might want to be when they transition to growing dependence. What type of home would be appropriate? My mother was outgoing and needed the community of a nurturing assisted living facility. Some might do fine living with relatives or with smaller groups. While we can promise we will never abandon them through this journey, we must not promise that your loved one will never have to go to a residential facility. In the early stages, it's hard to envision that home could not remain a safe solution through the later stages. Identify the ones who would be willing and able to be designated at the financial or healthcare power of attorney. As hard as it is to discuss dying, discover where they want to be buried. After my father died and was buried in Upper New York State, Mom moved to Wisconsin. She was willing to be buried there, knowing that they would be together in heaven. What kind of funeral memorial services would your loved one prefer? Discuss with a guardianship attorney or knowledgeable social worker about various end-of-life decisions. Do not resuscitate, feeding tubes, or intubation. In the earlier stages, your loved one will be better able to communicate their thoughts on these matters. And finally, you need to find the right caregiving partners and resources. Having a better idea of what's to come will help guide the family in this goal. Even if your loved one seems far from being ready to move, 2 are available facilities. If your name is on a waiting list, when the time comes, they will have more options. Become familiar with the area's services and home care aid providers. Set the table for success, enabling your loved one to be all and do all they can. We all have tasks laid up by the Lord for us to do. Acknowledging dementia should not stop us, but spur us on to serve the Lord for as long as we are able. While recognizing dementia in a loved one is difficult, knowing time is shorter can spur us on to make the best use of the time together. The hidden blessing of an early diagnosis is the time to prepare while your loved one is still able to participate in the process. For the day will come when decision-making will fall to the primary caregiver. An unfortunate accident, surgery, or illness could plunge your loved one to lower cognitive levels sooner than you think. Let us number our days. For more information on this topic, check out my book, Dementia Caregiving from a Biblical Perspective, Your Guide for the Journey, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, ChristianBook.com, and Westbow Press. Thanks for watching. Made possible thanks to my videographer and producer, my husband Ralph Gable, creator of Electronics for the Inquisitive Experimenter.